Well, good evening, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here, WilhiteWX.com. I want to bring you an update here on our storm chances this weekend. Winter storm threats certainly on the increase here. We had some showers, a little bit of a lot of drizzle this afternoon sort of roll through. That's going to roll through, and then tomorrow we're going to stay dry. Tomorrow night, though, you notice the lead wave of our winter storm approaching on Friday night and into early Saturday morning. You're looking at the Euro model here. And, well, it looks like we've got the lead wave of the precipitation into the state here in the pre-dawn hours here of Saturday morning. You notice, though, here's the low down in Arkansas, and in general, it looks like the low is going to track up from down here sort of in a direction in this fashion. Some of the models want to take it a little bit closer, but where it tracks is obviously going to affect how warm we get and how much rain we will end up getting, but I think that the Euro has a reasonable idea on this at this point in time. I'll show you the NAM here in a minute, too. We may split the difference between them. But what you've got here is some rain starting to move in. You've got a heavy snow band starting to come over Illinois. As I put this into motion, just watch this over time. And so rain overtakes the area by the time you're at about 9 a.m. or so on Saturday morning. Pretty much all of southern Indiana with some rain here, all except for just a little bit of sleet and freezing rain mixing up to the north, right at the border there where you have that heavier snow swath going on. Then as you get into the afternoon hours, here you are by about, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're still raining in southern Indiana, but you notice we're starting to see that freezing line, which is this blue line, coming back down, and you're starting to see the temperatures crash pretty hard in the afternoon, and then by the time you get into around dinner time, say 5, 6, 7 o'clock, it looks like you're going to start to see that rain change over to snow across the area. So if you have plans on Saturday, I think as long as you are in by, say, about 4 or 5 o'clock, you'll be okay. After that, the timing on this has sped up a little bit. It was slowing it down, and it was more of an overnight event. It started to speed up a little bit, so we'll see whether that trend holds in the data. And then it looks like it snows for several hours across the area as a result of that. This doesn't look like a heavy snow for southern Indiana. I also think, as you note on here, there will be some pockets every once in a while where you have some sleet and freezing rain sort of mixing. I don't see this as a very smooth transition between the rain going to the snow. I think there will be some ice. I don't think it's going to be a major ice event. I think it's going to be pretty brief overall, but you will likely see a transition to sleet or even some freezing rain or both mix in before you go over to a full-on snowfall. And then the rest of that moves in across the area, and then it's sort of out of the state into Kentucky and then out of here by early on Sunday morning. So as far as precipitation goes for coming to church on Sunday morning, it looks like it's probably going to be out of here by then. However, there's the mess still on the roadways to have to deal with, so you'll want to sort of keep tunes to the forecast as far as that. Now, the Euro doesn't put a whole lot of snow down here for southern Indiana. It really takes the bulk of the snow up here to the north, and it hammers southern Illinois here. It really hammers portions of Ohio here, but really you get basically some pockets of a couple of inches down in here, but for mostly this is a 1 to 2 inch swath on the Euro over here, and then you've got the heavier snows sort of pressed up here a little bit more towards the north. Some of the other data conflicts just a little bit with that. I'm going to show you the high-res NAM, give you an idea of this as well. This starts out again in the pre-dawn hours on Saturday morning rather here, and you see there's the rain moving in. And by the way, there could be some decent rain totals at this. We're looking at about 1 to 2 inches of rain across the area before the transition to snow starts to take place. Right now, it's looking pretty similar to the Euro here, except it starts to fizzle out a little bit here. As you get later into the day, it starts to work a dry slot in here, and you notice that the snow just starts to be eaten away at here as it goes through. And so most of the region does transition to some light snow, but it's not a very heavy snow on here. And of course, this model only goes out to 60 hours. Now, let me just back up here and put this. This is as far as the run this morning went out to. And I just want you to notice some differences here between the afternoon data and the morning data. One of the things that we're going to have to look out for is whether we can get a deformation band, is what we call it. A deformation band is just this heavy area of snow that forms on the backside of a low and sort of in a comma shape. You can get some intense snowfall rates out of that, and that's sort of what you're seeing here, but it's sort of a weak one here across southern Illinois, and then as it moves across, it sort of weakens out. But let me just show you. So this is This is what it shows now, but one run this morning showed this, a much more intense deformation band. And of course, that leads to some heavier totals as a result of that. And so here's the run from this morning. And again, it was as far as the model went out. So there would be some snow in here as well. Just the model hasn't seen it yet because it doesn't come out enough in time. But there's the nice deformation band setting in. The run this afternoon does not see that deformation band. So again, there are some big differences there with this. And for what it's worth, the low resolution NAM actually does see that deformation band, whereas the high resolution doesn't. And usually that's kind of the opposite. That's sort of backwards. So not some great agreement right now in the NAM. We'll have to sort of see if this starts to play out. Anytime that you're on the ending hours of the NAM, it usually is just not in its prime. It really starts to get better about one day before the event. So I think tomorrow's high resolution data will be a lot better than today's. But there are certainly some hints there that we'll have to look out for on tomorrow's data. If we can get a deformation band set up like this with those heavier snow totals, then we can certainly have some reasonable snow totals around here. If that deformation band never sets up and it starts to weaken out, then we'll be we'll be on the low end of guidance. That's just sort of the reality with this. Now, temperatures are going to be the other big thing, as well as the wind. You're going to be looking at winds cranking about 20 to 30 miles per hour much of the day. As the low starts to pass over you, it'll die back, but only to pick up as we go back into the nighttime hours. So really, it's going to be pretty windy both on Saturday and Sunday with that there. And just look at the temperatures and the crash we're expecting. So we're looking at Saturday morning here. And at this point, you're looking at temperatures in the 50s in lower Kentucky, up to 41 here in Huntingburg, 32 in Indy. And so you see just a nice big temperature gradient with this. And as we go through the afternoon, just sort of watch how this falls off. And so here you are coming towards the dinner time hours here, 6 o'clock, and you're down into the 30s and you're crashing pretty fast. And here you go into the early evening hours, 9, 10 o'clock, and you're already down into the 20s across the area. And in fact, by the time you wake up on Sunday morning, you're looking at temperatures here, in the mid-teens at the southern part of the state to some single digits as you go north. There's an extreme temperature gradient. We're really gonna go into some dangerous category as far as temperatures go, because of what happens is whenever you get down to about below 20 degrees or so, the brine and the road salt that NDOT uses on there, and some of your other states' Department of Transportation's, the road salt doesn't like to work when it gets down that cold. And so with the temperatures falling so fast, and you've got so much water, an inch or two of rain coming in with this, one of the worries is that you can get a flash freeze with this kind of thing. A flash freeze would then just sort of freeze over that water that's been ponding on the roadways. And even though we may have 20 to 30 mile per hour winds at time, and you may say, well, that might dry it off, and it might if we're lucky, but if you don't get a break in the precipitation before the freeze comes on. So if we get a dry slot and we're able to stop precipitating anything, the wind might have a chance to blow it away. That's great. But if we don't have any break in the precipitation, it's going to be wet, and as temperatures fall, we could get a flash freeze on that. And then, of course, that comes right at the time where we're thinking that we may get a transition to some sleet and freezing rain just briefly before we go to all snow with this as well. And so even if you get, say, an inch or so of snow on top of that with a light glaze of ice and then whatever has frozen on the roads from the flash freezing, well, you could get and end up with just a big mess out there. So all this to say, it's not going to take a big snowstorm at all for this to be a big mess for us here on Saturday and even into Sunday morning there as well. So before you head out to church, you want to make sure the church is not canceled. I suspect there's going to be a lot of roadways in pretty rough condition. I hope I'm wrong on that for Sunday morning, and that things are okay and that we can travel. But right now, as it looks, it's just not looking very pretty for that. So here's my forecast. I've introduced something new here. You've got to notice I've got a boom and a bust on here. So here's kind of the way that I want to explain this. It's something new that I've decided to do because I want to always trying to look for ways to communicate uncertainty to you in the forecast and sort of show you all ends of the spectrum, if you will. Some will say, "Wow, this is just a cop-out." It's not a cop-out. My forecast, for example, in the white area here for much of southern Indiana is 1 to 3 inches, 2 to 4 in the blue. Heavier totals as you get a little bit further up north of Indianapolis here. Let's just take the 2 to 4 inch totals. That's the expected totals. That's my forecast for this area. What if the system's an overachiever? Well, it'd be a boom, and you might get 5 to 7 out of it. Well, if it's more of a bust and we get dry slotted out and it's just weaker than we expected, well, then you may only get an inch or less out of that. So that's the idea that's being conveyed here with the boom and the bust. It's just sort of giving you the realm of possibilities. So like say you're living up in the northern chunk of Indiana here, where you've got the 5 to 8 inches the forecast. Your bust is still 3 to 4 inches of snow. In other words, I don't think you're going to get any less than 3 inches. I'd be really shocked if you got less than that. And if it was really an overachiever, you could get a foot or more out of this. That's kind of the idea on this. I know it may seem like a cop-out to some people whenever you sort of see that. Well, you know, you could get anywhere from 0 to 6 inches here in Evansville, just as an example with this. Yes, but the forecast is for 1 to 3. The 0 to the 6 on that, excuse me, 0 to the 6 on that is on the extreme side. So don't look at it that way. The forecast is 1 to 3, but I'm giving you the options. If it does start to become a little bit more of an overachiever, what could we possibly get out of this? When you get up here into these heavier totals, it sort of helps you plan a little bit better. Well, we're up here, you're going to get snow no matter what. We're not going to get any less than 3, and we could even get a foot out of this. You get the idea of just the realm of possibilities in with this. And again, some wording over here to the side to sort of explain the setup. Rain transitioning to that brief bit of sleet and ice on Saturday, then to snow, and all areas south of the I-70 corridor are here in Indiana are going to face that. So look for, again, some breezy conditions. The flash freeze likely as the temperatures start to crash by then. So that's the latest for this update. In about an hour from now, the next version of the high-res data will be rolling in for the evening models, and so we'll see what it says. You'll want to be sure to follow me on my other social media channels for that. I'm not going to record another video tonight. I will do one tomorrow, but not tonight. At Will Height WX on Twitter, and I post there pretty regularly as well. Another thing just to keep in mind, too, is winter storm watches have been hoisted for a good chunk of the region as well. If you're saying you're down here in the south and you're saying, well, I'm expecting winter weather, but I'm not under one, keep in mind winter storm watches are issued whenever they think a winter storm warning will probably be issued. What you're going to see down here in most of this region is likely going to just be winter weather advisories. Watches are not issued in advance if they think they're going to go advisory level rather than warning level. So just because you don't have a watch headline out for you this far out doesn't mean that that the snow and the nastiness isn't coming with this. It is, but it can be a little bit deceiving as there. Anyway, be sure to follow me on there or on Facebook as well, Southern Indiana Weather. I am more active on Twitter, but I post certainly to both. That's it for this video update, folks. I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite, willheightwx.com. Take care, have a good night, and keep it tuned to social media, and I'll keep you updated as we head through the storm.